Welcome y'all to another episode of the Southern Comfort Podcast. I'm your boy Big Rich.
Kevin Harris.
Kevin, how you feeling, man?
I'm
This is
feeling good. We starting to, I think, hit this last little leg of a summer. So
yeah.
want to try to get some more trips in. I also find it hilarious that every other part of the country I travel to is hotter than Florida, which is funny.
LA was lovely. I must admit,
Mm,
I was shockingly surprised that during the day, great breeze. Didn't go past 80.
hmm
At night, of course, the desert is always chilly, but man, it was quite lovely. Now we back in Georgia,
hmm
bruh. It
Yeah, not
is,
it's not chilly. That's for sure.
bruh. But yeah, man, you hit it. You talked about us in the summer. I know you got a couple more trips coming up.
hmm
We're still doing our virtual thing, bouncing around from place to place. Just can't really find the time to get back in the studio, Spark Social Studio with our boy Drew, Drew, with our boy Dre and
hmm
Hannah.
hmm
Um, but one monkey don't stop no show. We still got to record. We still got to talk about it. And we're entering August now, and you know what that means, right?
August recess.
August recess.
hmm
Just a little bit, right, for folks who don't know, August recess is really a time where members of Congress use their time to go out and meet with their constituents. They hold town halls, meet with local businesses, organizations, and they try to gauge the public opinion on issues um, it's considered essential for maintaining sort of that connection between the representative and the people that they serve. And I think right now the House is already they kind of left early, right? And so
Yeah. Well, you
uh,
gotta let the people know why that is. Don't let them just be thinking they just want to take a little break.
it's again it shows the boldness of the Republicans, and it's going to probably go into what we're about to talk about. But House Speaker Mike Johnson basically said. We about to leave early because I ain't trying to deal with Jeffrey Epstein, right? I'm not. I'm like, nope, it's not finna happen. And so he didn't bounce. He was like, yeah. So we don't need to talk about it. We don't need to bring it up for vote.
Yep.
We about to hit vacation time early. But it's not the same for the Senate. I think the Senate is considering canceling um, recess due to Donald Trump is acting like a little baby and demanding that that the Senate confirm some judges. What else? Oh, he's looking for some passageway for some legislation, and I think you know with the September deadline looming in terms of what another budget.
Correct. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Senate still has some more work to do. There's a lot. There's also like a lot of key positions that we got vacancies for, with it that they're trying to get filled, and I think we'll at some point we'll talk about that more as well. But I think with the Epstein, and I know we're gonna go into this later, just talking about some of our thoughts on what the Democrats should be doing during this recess. But with the Epstein files, I think it's important that we not make the same mistake that we always make with everything that Republicans do and that Donald Trump does.
uh-huh.
We focus on just being outraged by it, right? Instead of taking the lesson that we need to take, which is you get power back, be just as ruthless in your agenda and getting it done. That's what people want to hear, and that's what people want to see. Nobody's surprised that they did that. What they're surprised by is why is it that we don't see the same energy from Democrats when they have power, and that's what has them a little shook about whether or not they should give us power back. And that's also what has them feeling, pretty bad about our brand right now. They don't like, as we'll discuss, they don't really like either party right now, but they like us less than they like them.
Well, and let's actually jump right to it, right? I think a Wall Street Journal released a poll done by I think John Anzalone, who you and I
Mm-hmm.
have worked with
Mm-hmm.
in the past.
Southern guy.
He's Southern guys from Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
and he did it with in conjunction with a Republican poster. I can't think of the gentleman's name, but
Mm-hmm.
it basically said what we've been saying for a while, right? The brand is bad. The Democrat brand is bad. They do not. Democrats are like a 33% favorability versus 63% of unfavorability.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, men lie, women lie, numbers don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the numbers just say that uh, Democrats aren't feeling the Democratic Party right now.
No, and honestly, if this was a candidate, we would seriously be telling them don't run,
Right,
right? And we
right,
have been in situations where a candidate wanted to run for something and this were their numbers and we just said don't do it, right? But in this instance, we have to. We have to run candidates. We have to get back out there on the field. And I think one positive from it is that, well, it's not like the Republicans are that much more popular than us. And so, that does give us a pathway back, but it's a few things that we have to understand, which we've talked about a lot on the show. One of them is I think we have to have a clear, concise message around affordability, right? That's number one. Number two is I think that we have to stop being outraged by Republicans and start being just as ruthless in executing our agenda as they are in theirs. And I think once people see that that's our energy and that's our vibe, the brand will improve. The other thing we got to do is the third thing is we got to change and broaden the definition of what we consider to be the middle class and understand the real diversity of the middle class and the ways in which we reach them with information. And then the last thing is we got to stop thinking that like our problems go away once Donald Trump isn't in office anymore. And we have to understand that there's just been a fundamental realignment here, and that all of this work is still gonna remain. And we got to get real clear and consistent about what our agenda is. We're still spending too much time saying what we're against and sort of being reactionary to everything that Republicans are doing. And we still aren't spending enough time telling people what we want to do and reassuring them that if we get power back, we'll deliver.
right. And I think going back to the poll, it shows that Republicans are performing better despite Trump's, -7 approval rating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the parody of that is voters disapprove of Trump's handling of things like inflation and tariffs, but they still trust Republicans more on these issues, which is crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think, well, I think we've said it on, not to sound like a broken record, um, but it's not about the messenger; it's about the message, right? I
Right.
mean, you said it again.
Right.
Even when folks don't like what the Republicans are doing, they still trust them more on the economy, you know. And I guess that's a message problem. It's not a policy platform.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like tariffs are unpopular, right? But they're still, favoring the guy who's for tariffs, right? So what I say is that, a bad plan beats no plan, right? He has a
Uh-huh.
bad plan, but we have no plan. At least not one that we've articulated to the public, right?
Right.
So a bad plan even beats no plan. And I think that that's where we are. And to your point, it's less about the messenger in that instance, but more about, well, what are you messaging? And we have to coalesce around what it is we want to message. And it can't just be opposition. We have to say what we're for. And I remember one of the big cycles that we did some work on years ago, very early in our careers, not to sound, even though there's some gray in my beard now, but not to sound like this old guy, was that 2006 cycle. And that was in the middle of Bush's second term. The Democrats had been locked out of power. This is the cycle where Nancy Pelosi became the first woman
Uh-huh.
speaker. And she ran on a platform. It was 6 for '06. and she had 6 key items that she said, this is what I'm going to do. This is what a Democrat majority will do if we get power back, right? We need something like a 6 for 2026 or something like that. We can come up with a different name for it, but the point is you got to start saying what you're for. You can't just say what you were against. She didn't run a whole election that cycle just being against Bush. She said what she was for and what she would do if you gave her power.
Well, here's what should scare every Democrat in a competitive district,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, Even John Anzalone had to admit that the Democratic brand is so bad that they can't even effectively criticize Trump until they reconnect with the working class voter on the economic messaging, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like you ask yourself the question, like going into this August recess, where they have the ability to get some goodwill and try to gain some footing or support. What are the three things, right? Maybe three things.
Mm-hmm.
They really only need one, but what three things do you think that they should focus on going into this recess?
I agree with you. I think it's really just one thing, and that's affordability. And from there, talk about how everything that we believe in and fight for and advocate for will help to make their life more affordable. So we are for expanding Medicaid, not just because Donald Trump just took it away. We're for expanding Medicaid because healthcare is expensive and people need access to quality, affordable healthcare. And one way to make healthcare more affordable for people is to expand Medicaid, right? We are against tariffs, not just because Donald Trump is for them. We're against them because they make your life more expensive. The things that you go to the store to buy and purchase that you rely on every day, even just little small, simple pleasures like wanting to get your kid a car. We've all been that little kid in the store asking our mama for,
Yeah,
can I have this, right?
yeah.
Well, a lot of mamas now are saying no to that, especially because stuff's more expensive, right? So we're not against tariffs because Trump is for them. We're against them because they make your life more expensive. And quite frankly, even with the ICE raids, as an example, we're not against them just because Donald Trump is for them. We're against ICE raids. It's because it is impacting a critical sector of our workforce that is ultimately going to make your food more expensive, right? So to me, it's one issue, and that's affordability. And you tie everything back to that, and we got to get serious about that.
So, in this trust gap that we have between the party and voters, I mean, both parties and voters,
Hmm.
right? Would you say Republicans lead on issues like economy, inflation, and foreign policy, and Democrats really only kind of lead on healthcare?
So that's the thing that's always kind of been said, right? Like Republicans are the daddy party. And this is very sexist, but that's what the old saying is, right? Republicans are the daddy party, so they do national security, those types of things. You go to Republicans when you need to feel safe and you need to feel protected. And then Democrats are the mommy party. You go to them when you need things that make you feel good, like healthcare and it used to be the economy. But we lost our edge there as
That was what
well
under Clinton.
under Clinton. And part of the reason Clinton was successful is because for his time he realigned a lot of the coalitions, right? And right now there's a realignment of the coalitions that's taking place here too, where you're not seeing African Americans be as monolithic, right, in their ultimately how they vote. The same with the Latino community. Basically, the same with all communities, right? Because as we talked about on the show, in this last election in 2024, we lost ground with every group except Black women. So there's a realignment of the coalition that's happening here. And similar to what Bill Clinton did to help him reclaim his success in the 90s, we have to figure out what that looks like for us today. And to a certain degree, Barack Obama did the same thing. And but I think the linchpin of that though is we gotta get on the same page about what we're for. And as you just noted about this recent poll from the Wall Street Journal from Anzalone, just being against Trump isn't enough. I don't know how many times we have to lose elections to understand that you can't just be against Trump. You have to be for something.
So in this credibility crisis, why do you think why voters prefer Republican solutions, even when they criticize the Republican performance?
I think it's because uh I think it's because they have a plan, right? We don't have one. They have a plan. They're at least communicating something. Whereas from us, people don't feel like they hear anything, and so they're at least willing to try the Republicans. And our brand has gotten so bad over the years that they just assume that even though I'm not hearing anything for the Democrats, whatever they're for must not be for me. And so we have to get better at defining the terms of some of these debates that go into how people are making their decisions to ultimately vote. And I think that that first starts with getting organized around a message and a core set of issues and defining the debate on our terms. And right now we're not really doing that. And my hope is that they'll use some of this August recess to do it. Again, not to just spend the whole time just saying how bad the big beautiful bill is, but to also say what we'll do. Even if a part of what we'll do is we'll reverse the bad parts of the big beautiful bill. There's a lot of bad parts in it.
You know, you said something. You used to say something, particularly during uh, when we talked about the analysis of the why we lost
Hmm.
this past presidential. I think you said Democrats did so much talking about why Trump is bad, they never really said why they are good or what they were going to accomplish.
Well, for me, that goes back to Hillary, right? My shorthand explanation of why we lost that race was we spent too much time telling people why they should be against Donald Trump and not enough time telling them why they should be for Hillary. And to a certain degree in 2024 with Kamala, we did a little bit of the same things. And to the extent we said what we were for, we probably put too much into the abortion issue. Um, and we probably put a little bit too much into democracy and freedom. And where voters really were was the economy, and they didn't hear that coming through as loudly in our messaging and in our positioning. And so every election we've lost to Donald Trump is because we didn't have the right balance, I think, in our messaging where we weren't saying what we were for. We beat him in 2020. Um, do I think we said what we were for in that election? Not really. We didn't have to say much because we were in the middle of COVID and
COVID
people
and
just,
Trump.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, so, so we should learn right from that because these are still how some of these debates are going to be colored moving forward, even when Donald Trump's not in office.
Yeah. So, this isn't just a vacation time, right?
Hmm.
It's an opportunity, while Republicans are still dealing with, and don't get us wrong, Republicans still have a lot of internal chaos going on within their party, right? Um, but it's an opportunity for Democrats, and they have a chance. What they just simply need to do is just get back to the basics, right? Town halls, kitchen table conversations. Talk about what's going on Main Street, and do listening tours. We have to move beyond a resistance messaging, right? We have to focus on practical local solutions. All
Yep.
politics is local.
Yep.
We need to, they need to, we're like, rebuild, rebuild the trust through direct engagement, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
There's nothing like, get off Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok and social media and get back to, hell, I would love to see them go out and knock on some doors,
Yeah.
right?
Why not?
Why not?
Why
You
not?
know,
And think about the earned media you get from that though, right? If you had Hakeem Jeffries, just go knock a block,
right.
talk to people,
Talk to people.
and also, it really is that simple in many ways too. If you're unsure, well, hell, just ask people.
Uh-huh.
Ask them; they'll
Because
tell you.
listen, as a grassroots organizer,
Mhm.
I say this like we are therapists. And when you knock on someone's door or when you call them on the phone, they
Hmm.
say they don't want to talk, but next thing you know, 20 minutes later, you're still there,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
you'd be surprised what you can learn if you just say, hey, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And lean into those state and local officials, right, while you're doing it. Take the
Yeah.
mayors with you, right? Take the state reps with you and stuff and go just have some conversations with people and think about that. That's what people are seeing. Republicans still won't even really have town halls on what they're doing, right, in Washington. Whereas you have Democrats out here literally, not a few weeks before the election, literally knocking on doors a year before the next election, asking people, you know, how they're feeling, how is what some of is happening in Washington going to impact them. And so even something as small of a gesture as that, I think would be very impactful, right?
Right.
So I agree with you. And then also we've done this a lot on races that we've done. I'm a big fan of telephone town halls.
Mm,
I love them.
listen.
And you can put them online while you do them,
Yeah.
but especially like an older crowd, and even not an older crowd, right? We had some young folks get on those too. They just appreciate the call. But especially some of those older ones, they will stay on for
Uh-huh.
a few minutes. They will participate in the survey questions and stuff like that to let you know exactly where they feel. But every time I've seen us do it now here recently, again, it's reacting to something that the Republicans have done. Start doing those same things, but this time do it to tell people what you're for.
Well, I think now we're starting to see the rise of people who are considering running in 2028 on the Democratic side.
Mm-hmm.
And former Secretary, what is he, Transportation? Pete
People who said,
Buttigieg.
mm-hmm.
He was on NPR, and he basically said that Democrats were too attached to status quo that has been failing us for a long time. Now, I like Pete. You know, I think Pete, he gets it. Will we see Pete ever get the nomination?
Unlikely.
Probably not, right?
No, not likely.
No fault of his own. Well, no fault of his own.
No,
No.
no.
But he is right, right? The status quo is not working. We need reform, not just restoration.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, this trust crisis is real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the Epstein files just reflects a broader, you know, credibility issue.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Even now you have the MAGA Republicans turning on Trump, right? And I think my father-in-law asked me, we had dinner last week, and he asked me, this was the meeting of the most interesting fans club, right?
Mm, mm,
But he said, why do you think Trump wants the files released? I said, well, he can publicly say he wants the files released, but privately he telling them, man, y'all better not release that shit.
I was about to say, no, no. Why does he think that Trump wants them released? He
Well,
does not.
he says it publicly,
He
right?
wants you to think that.
Right. He wants you to think that. But again, it's going to that credibility. And I find it even funny now that he's like, oh, I'll release the King files. It's just like, bruh, come on. Like, at the end of the day, we know white people kill King.
We know what happened to Dr. King,
Right.
and also, I mean, I guess next week he'll do Bigfoot, or whatever he got to do to kind of keep it off.
Kennedy assassination.
But even with the Epstein, that's an opportunity, right? Not to just sort of say we're for releasing the files, right? No, it's to say if they're so focused and concerned about this, there's no way they're doing the work that needs to be done to bring down some of these costs that's impacting you. And here's what we will do if we get power, or when we get power back, right? We'll make sure that the controversies of the day, that the fights of the day are about things that impact your life and not about protecting a person. one person, right? Or about issues that just impact that one person, right? We want to focus and deal on things that have a positive impact for millions of people and future generations, right? And that's those are the kinds of pivots, right, that people wanna see and need to see from Democrats. And again, there's just too much reaction and not enough proactivity in our message.
Yeah, I think Democrats, they must model the courage that they want to see, right? They can't let fear of political correctness, police their messaging.
Yeah,
And that's what they've been doing, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
it's like politics of courage over fear,
yeah,
right? Push back against intimidation, and the fear of retribution, right? And be bold, be brave. You must be willing to take a position that might upset the base, but also serve a broader community.
yeah.
And
And talk to people even when you disagree,
yeah,
or even if you know that the answer you're gonna give is not the answer that they like or that
right.
they wanna hear right now. Talk to them anyway and still give your answer.
And again, to do a Southern strategy that works, we wrote about it and we talked about it, in an op-ed that we had published,
Hmm.
where we want people to learn and lean on the work that our good friends, Mayor Randall Woodfin of Birmingham, Alabama, and Mayor Brandon Scott of Baltimore, Maryland.
Hmm.
Some of the things that they're doing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And a lot of and we talk about them because they're clients, but there are others. Karen Bass, right? she's
Yeah, yeah.
she's a part of that out in California. She's had to deal with the response to the fires out there, but
Hmm.
if you look at all those other traditional metrics, right, that mayors are judged on, she's in that same caliber, in that same tier. I think Andre Dickens is similar in Atlanta, in that class of mayors that are just doing things in this same political environment, right? They're getting things done, and part of the reason that you know, for the most part, they're looked at so favorably and their policies are looked at so favorably is because they don't have a lot of time to sit and pontificate about what they're against. They have to go out every day and not just say what they for, they have to show you because they're mayors. You have to do things. And one of the things we talked about in the op-ed is how there's a big lesson in that for Democrats nationally in this moment. It's not just about taking these issues or positions of opposition. You have to say what you're for, and then you have to go do it. And like, I hate to make it sound that simple because it seems like duh, but no, like, yeah, that's the answer, and we're not doing it, right? And so this first step, we can't do much right now because we're not in power. But the first step, though, is let's get on the same page about what we are for, and
Hmm.
understand that not everybody that we want to vote for us is gonna like that. Is gonna like everything that makes it in that, right? But that's what we're for. That's what we're running on. Get on the same page, and let's go out there and tell people and meet them where they are and tell them
Meet,
what we're for.
meet them where they are, right? And again, Randall and Brandon, they're focusing on what working class voters actually care about,
That's
right?
right.
With Randall, he's talking about reducing violent crime
That's right.
while investing in prevention.
That's right.
He's boosting the police presence and initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
without defunding the police, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We allowed them to take that defunding the police and turn it against us, you know. But now he's combining enforcement with life coaching, with job placement,
Yeah.
with mental health services.
Yep.
And I think he's showing the way he can be progressive with his policies while still being pragmatic on results,
That's
and
right.
I appreciate that, right?
Right.
And with Mayor Scott, right, he reduced homicide by what,
50%.
50%, and
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
something that hasn't been done in 50 years.
No, these are unheard of numbers,
Right.
right? And I was in Baltimore city government for 2.5 years, working in the mayor's office. And these were not numbers that were that were typical, right? Like there were times where we're hoping for cold weather because we know that there's a less likelihood that a homicide will happen there, right? Like we're down to the weather being a part of the crime strategy. And so what he has done is nothing short of remarkable because he literally has transformed the way in which the government approaches crime. And he's showing that, smart policy is smart politics. But again, you have to say what you're for and you have to go out there and do it. And being a part of his campaigns, he's simply just doing everything that we campaigned on. He
How
told people this
how
is
old
what he
is
would do.
how old is Mayor Scott?
We should be we're the same age, so 4 to 1.
41. Right. I love it because both Brandon Scott and Randall, they're showing that their young black leadership isn't something to be feared, right? It's something to be
No,
celebrated, right?
no.
They're both fathers,
Yep,
they're focused on results
yep.
and they're making changes, right?
And
Birmingham of all places.
and you know what? They're not in the Epstein files.
No.
They're just and see, they're just doing their jobs. They're just doing their jobs, right? And that's what they're talking to their constituents about every day, not whatever craziness is coming from the other side. And that is a lesson for Democrats everywhere. We got some big governors races coming up here too. Yeah, that we need everybody singing from that same page.
You know, those mayors they understand something that Washington Democrats have forgotten. You can't tweet your way to credibility, right? You have to earn it block by block, neighborhood by
Hmm.
neighborhood, right? And
Hmm.
I hope that, they could take some key lessons from them, right? Working class
Hmm.
voters, they judge by your track record,
Right,
not rhetoric, right?
right, right,
Can you make the streets safer? Like,
right.
can you bring jobs?
That's right.
Can you keep my rent reasonable? You know, progressive populism. I really never liked that term, but progressive populism
Hmm.
married with like practical solutions.
That's right.
And
That's
as we look to the municipal races coming up this November, right? Hopefully, there'll be some more leaders that rise to the crop as people that we mentioned. Again, for folks who don't know, check out Mayor Randall Woodfin in Birmingham, Brandon Scott in Baltimore, Andre Dickens in Atlanta,
hmm
um, a mayor in Los Angeles, Karen Bass,
hmm
um,
my old boss.
a whole boss.
Hmm.
Uh, but now I think to keep things Southern, this is the Southern Comfort Podcast. Governor Roy Cooper
Hmm.
has, finally announced that he will throw his name in the hat to run for Senate. Of course, Tom Tillis has decided he would not run for reelection. I
Hmm.
guess he's tired and doesn't want to fight Trump and realizes that would be sort of the death of him in some aspects.
Yeah, well, whatever. He still voted for the bill, so you ain't too tired.
um, so now Roy Cooper has jumped in the North Carolina race for Senate,
Hmm.
which again changes everything. I think it kind of puts um, another eye back on the South in terms of key races to look for.
Right.
It kind of highlights and it does offer some support to John Ossoff. But to get back to Roy Cooper, he was a finalist for a running mate for Vice President Harris this
Hmm.
past cycle.
Hmm.
But I think the beautiful thing about him, he's a winner, right? He served 4 terms as the state's attorney general. That's
Hmm.
16 years, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That
Hmm.
means he won
Every time.
every time.
Hmm.
He defeated the incumbent Republican governor in 2016. He won his reelection by even a larger margin than he did in 2020. And he outperformed the Democratic presidential candidates in both Trump years that he won.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and to put it, lightly, he's a winner.
Yeah. Well, and let's break that down further. Just make sure put a finer point on it too, so people understand it. When we say in those presidential years, that means that the candidate for president lost
Loss.
that year, and the same time he won. So that means at the same time people were coming out and vote for Trump, they also voted to make him their governor, or their attorney general. The other thing about him too is that he has coattails, right? And
Uh-huh.
so in 2024, when he couldn't run for governor again, uh, it wasn't just he didn't just leave it with just me winning, right? He made sure that the person coming behind him was a Democratic governor. We were able to hold that seat with Josh Stein. And the reason that his potential selection to be Kamala's running mate didn't happen was because one of the reasons, because we don't know if she ultimately would have picked him or not, but one of the reasons why it didn't advance much further is because he took himself out of contention because he was worried that to be the VP nominee, he would have to leave the state quite a bit to campaign, and that would mean the Republican lieutenant governor being left in charge with a
Right.
Republican legislature, and he
Yeah.
was concerned about what they would do while he was out of state. And so he took his name out of the hat for that so that he could stay close to home. And we've seen these very difficult abortion bans and abortion policies that have happened across the South in particular. Well, one of the reasons that there's been a bit of a check on that in North Carolina is because you had a guy like Roy Cooper who just
Uh-huh.
kept vetoing it,
Uh-huh.
and saying, no, we're not going to do that. And but for him, right, North Carolina would be in a very different position there and in a whole lot of other areas. And so, in terms of Democrats getting some power back, what's exciting about him getting into that race is that it puts a state on the table. It helps to again draw some attention to the leadership in the South. And the reason Roy Cooper has been so successful is because he is somebody that has been doing everything that we've been talking about. And look at that. He's been running consistently in a red state while Democrats have had this bad brand, but he keeps winning.
Right. And I think Democrats haven't won in North Carolina since I think 2008, right?
A presidential,
Oh
yeah,
no, the Senate race.
Senate race,
Because I
Kay
think it was
Hagan.
Tay Hagan. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I think, North Carolina is probably only one of two realistic Democratic pickups that we can get in 2026 when it comes to the a Senate race. And so, Governor Cooper proves you can be a Democrat and win in Trump country by focusing on middle class appeal and North Carolina values, right?
That's right.
Not Washington talking points.
Nope, nope.
The beltway language, right? And so, that's something that we stressed and pushed for Doug Jones
Mm-hmm,
when he ran and won. We tried to keep Washington out of it. We
mm-hmm,
kept it focused on Alabama, and
mm-hmm,
hopefully, and I think Roy knows that, right? That's
mm-hmm,
why
mm-hmm,
he's what 4, 5, 6 time champ when it comes to winning an election statewide in
mm-hmm,
North Carolina.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
On the other hand, right, it begs to differ with Ossoff. I think that is going to be an interesting race because this will be the first time Ossoff is at the top of the ticket and he doesn't have someone of the likes of
Or not.
Warnock to support him and help turn out the support. And there is some knocks against Ossoff, right? A
Mm-hmm,
lot of some people would say that he isn't in touch with voters as it may seem. I think he's been doing a good job while
mm-hmm.
he's in office. He's been getting out there, trying to make a name for himself. But it's going to be interesting to see how he plays it this time around winning statewide, right? I wonder what that's going to look like.
Well, from my vantage point, I see him doing two things really, really well. Number one, he's raising a lot of money. And number two, he doesn't have this big national profile. And I think that that's by design. You rarely see him. Sorry
That's
guys, that is Daisy.
that way you've heard about Daisy before
She's
now.
making her first appearance here on the podcast. I mean, maybe she disagrees with me here. Anyway, so
About Ossoff, probably.
maybe, probably.
That means Daisy's a Republican.
I mean, she's very conservative. Like what she's barking about right now is these folks are on the sidewalk. They're on the sidewalk. It's a public sidewalk, but it's too close to her. So she takes a very conservative view of personal space. So even being outside the house on the sidewalk is a little too much for her. But anyway, um, two things I see Ossoff doing right though. Number one, raising a lot of money. Number two, he doesn't have this big national profile, and I think that's by design. And a big part of the reason that's by design is because he is more active and focused on Georgia. And I do see him, and to the extent I see him covered and stuff like that, it is in Georgia. And so perhaps he needs to step that up more. I anticipate you'll see that more as he's running, but as long as he continues to do it that way, I think he'll do quite well. And honestly, that's how Warnock won when Warnock had to run on his own, right? He did raise the money and the resources to do it. He didn't spend a whole lot of time on the national television circuit. He kept it focused on Georgia. Maintained his schedule, continuing to preach every Sunday. And I remember, I thought it was so interesting that Warnock, a lot of the time he spent, it wasn't about a big bill that he voted on or worked on. He spent time talking about a bipartisan bill he did with Ted Cruz to fix roads. Very common sense, sensible stuff.
Well, it'll be interesting with John Ossoff because now he is, you know, at the driver's seat when it comes to the party, right?
Hmm.
He had that very public battle with Congresswoman Nikema Williams, who was party chair at the time, and now he's gotten his person in the seat now when it comes to party chair.
Hmm.
I guess he's thinking he's writing his own playbook when it comes to how politics works. We do have a governor's race here. Right now, it seems like everybody who is running for governor of Georgia is a person of color. We have former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who is an African American woman. We have
Hmm.
State Senator Jason Estevez, who is um, biracial, black, and I believe like Puerto Rican, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
You have a pastor named Olu Brown, who is black, as well as potential uh, former DeKalb County Commissioner Michael Thurman, who said that he is slated to race, and another state representative Derek Jackson. Both are black men. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the ticket shapes out. In terms of what's going on here in Georgia, but Ossoff is going to need some support. He's definitely going to need a person of color to help continue to spread his name in parts of the community where people aren't that familiar with him. And believe it or not, there are millions of people out there still aren't engaged in politics, and we still need to expand the electorate. And hopefully, in this rebrand that the state party has here in Georgia, as well as what we're going to see nationally, maybe we can pick up some more voters,
Well,
particularly black and brown men.
yeah, well, he also needs two. You got a lot
He
of
need to
key
call one of us, but
but you got a lot of key races in Georgia that are down ballot that are empty. We
yeah,
don't even Democrats
yeah,
aren't even fielding candidates for it. And that's one of the lessons to take from North Carolina, right? Like, a lot of the focus and attention has been put on Georgia as a battleground state because Biden flipped it. But the truth of the matter is, North Carolina is more of one. Then, they have more of a consistent record of electing Democrats to key offices
yeah.
than Georgia. So I would put them a little bit ahead of us. And Ossoff also needs that, right? We need a labor commissioner candidate, a good one. We need probably a good one for attorney general, right? Like we need good people running in these races as well, really helping each other. And that helps to improve that democratic brand, right? That we're talking about here so much. So, So hopefully we'll see that, and that's something that Georgia can learn from North Carolina. They consistently field candidates, and guess what? They win those races, right?
They
We've
win
had
those races.
Democratic attorney generals, we've had Democratic governors. They've had things happen in that state that have not happened, and at the presidential level, they had a big flip before Biden in 2020. Obama won North Carolina that first
Yep.
time.
Yep. So, I mentioned him earlier, right? And I think with Roy getting in the race,
Mm-hmm.
we got things brewing down here in Georgia. The good thing that Randall is doing in Birmingham, you know, listen, I spoke to my guy last week. We do check-ins periodically. I'm going to keep pushing and encouraging my good friend Doug Jones to possibly get back out there and do a rematch with Tuberville. What's that? Make it an Iron Bowl, baby. Roll Tide, War Eagle. Let's get it going, right? I'm all for it. I would love to get back in Alabama and do some things there. It's a second home to me. It's your
Yeah.
home state.
Yeah.
Great people, great food. You
Mm-hmm.
never know, So here's where we are. Democrats are at a historic low in approval,
Mm-hmm.
but the August recess gives us a month to start uh, rebuilding and start that trust, you know, all over again with conversations, one-on-one conversations. There's a roadmap here in the South. Woodfin in Birmingham, Scott in Baltimore,
Mm-hmm.
Cooper in North Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got Warnock and Ossoff here in Georgia. These
And,
aren't
and
accidents.
and Bashir,
Bashir, yeah,
Bashir in Kentucky. Yep.
Bashir in Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can even play Doug Jones back in 2017, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
these are Democrats. They're not accidents, they're Democrats
Mm-hmm.
who figured out how to win by focusing on what matters to working family, to working class people,
Mm-hmm.
to those middle class voters. But in light, understanding they also have to appeal to more conservative voters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they do that in certain areas, right? Economy being one of them.
Sure.
Um,
Sure. And this is the other thing too, like Democrats, Republicans are more trusted on spending, which is crazy. But that's something mayors have experience in talking about. Like they get more scrutiny over their
yeah.
budgets and how those budgets and those funds are being administered and government waste and all those different things too. So like they really do have to lead on all of these issues that Democrats are underwater on nationally. And so again, it just, reinforces something that we've been saying and that we even wrote about, might want to listen to some of these mayors as we start to kind of figure out, well, what are we for going into the midterms?
I as we begin to bring this conversation to a close, the Democratic Party doesn't need a complete renovation, right? It needs to remember its roots, and those roots run deep in the South, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, it's how to build coalitions. Is remember to deliver results
Mm-hmm.
and win with your heart and minds, right? Everybody loves Southern cuisine, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a if I can give you that Southern comfort recipe, like how we've been saying it, for the last 25, 26 episodes, like
Mm-hmm.
listen more than you talk,
Yep.
during this August recess,
Yep.
focus on local solutions to national problems, right? Marry, progressive values with like practical results.
Right.
Build trust through consistent delivery, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Stop being afraid of taking positions that serve our communities,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
if you do all of that, I guarantee you, you'll have a winning campaign.
Yeah. I agree. And again, just meet people where they are.
Yeah,
Meet people where they are.
yeah.
Don't like we say this all the time in terms of how we approach our jobs as consultants. It's true for I think our candidates too, right? Remember, our job is to analyze the electorate, not judge it. I don't know why someone would believe Republicans are better at spending than Democrats. I have no idea why they would believe that. But again, I don't judge them. for that, right? I analyze that as being a problem and a challenge that we need to meet, right? And take that challenge on
Yeah. Yeah.
and go to where people are and have that conversation with them about why our plans are better. But, first you got to get some plans.
Well, as always, we close it out with our Mamba moment. I think for me, I want to give it. I'm surprised we haven't given it to this person, and we probably have. But today, Coach Deion Primetime Sanders
Hmm.
announced that he had been battling bladder cancer,
Mm-hmm.
but he is 100% doing well. Everything is great, and it just shows, why Prime is who he is, right? The moment he stepped on the field, he was he was relentless, dedicated to his craft,
Mm-hmm.
but also as, a black man in this whole scheme of life. He is, a beacon of light for people like you and I,
Yeah.
positive force, great father. And I'm glad to hear that, he approaches things head on. But in his press conference today, he talked about health. And I think you and I are going to talk about that a little bit more in some other avenues. But, um, yeah, man, he gets my mama moment for today.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely add to that and say I also appreciate his advocacy for HBCUs when he didn't have to. Had a number of opportunities, really any opportunity available to him, and he chose to focus and uplift the community in that way. And then I would give my Mamba moment. I actually want to give it to Roy for stepping up and getting into that race. It's easy enough. He could just rest on his laurels right now. Been a prolific political career in North Carolina. Easy enough to just step back and maybe could go make some money, do a number of things instead of getting into a grueling Senate race that's far from certain, right? Like, why not just leave as a winner?
Yeah.
And why get into a race that you might lose? But because he's never been afraid, right? Because he's just run authentically as himself, right? He's not worried about that. He might lose, might not, but it's not a consideration for him. He's going to do what he's always done. And so I give it to him.
Well, that's our time today. Keep fighting the good fight. And remember, democracy isn't a spectator sport. We'll see you next week on the Southern Comfort Podcast. Peace.
Peace.